Hello, everyone. Can you please silence your phones? That's one of my jobs. Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. It's a bittersweet day as we gather here to remember and celebrate the life of David. My name is Carly Luque, and I'm a family friend. We mourn the loss of a cherished son, brother, grandson, nephew, cousin, and friend. In times of grief, we find solace in the bond we share as a community. We'll be sharing memories, honoring David, and remembering the joy he brought into our lives. The music you've been hearing is from David's playlist. I first met David when Roseanne and I were working at CBS. They're still living on Hoyne, and he was playing baseball on the front sidewalk. Throughout the years, I've become close to Roseanne, Mark, David, Amalia, and Pilar. When thinking of one story or memory, I can only think of one that spanned over several years. I'm not sure how it started, but we spent every Tuesday together. Roseanne would cook dinner, or we'd order dinner, and we'd watch Pretty Little Liars. We did this for years. I looked up when the show aired, and it said 2010 to 2016. I don't think it lasted that long, but who knows? For part of the time, David and Amalia were at Parker. Then David was at Loyola, and Amalia went on to Wisconsin, and Pilar was just a little girl. It was a steady visit in all of our lives, a day to check in, give weekly updates, and gossip on the happenings at work, and of course my family. David loved that topic. We planned prom outfits and talked about graduations and planned birthday or holiday celebrations we'd be doing together. On those Tuesdays when we weren't watching Pretty Little Liars, of course David had sports on. He would never agree to watch a single Hallmark movie, but did enjoy The Housewives. He introduced me to Wingstop. I will forever think of him when I order any kind of wings. He loved going to the movies and being surrounded by family and friends. In our hearts, David will always be remembered as a bright light, a reflection of the love and support he shared with his family. Though we mourn his absence, let us find comfort in the memories we share and the love they instilled in us. Thank you all for being here to honor David.
I had the privilege of having David as my big brother. Growing up, he and I were attached at the hip. I always wanted to be just like him. When he took an interest in something, so did I. First, it was baseball. We would play wherever we could, whenever we could, whether that was at home, at the park, or in our front yard of our house. David and I were lucky enough to grow up on a city block with tons of kids our age that would join in. Then it was wiffle ball. David joined wiffle ball camp, and in true fashion, I, as one of two girls, followed and joined wiffle ball camp. We also dabbled in flag football for some time before David found a love for hockey and became a coveted goalie. I found myself on the street playing sports with my brother and his friends all the time. While I often followed David's hobbies, he was always willing to entertain what I liked too. He even participated in dress-up with me on occasion. David and I had always wanted a little sister. Unlike most young boys, David never asked for a baby brother. We both begged and pleaded for a little sister, and by some luck, we got our wish. David loved Pilar more than anything. As I went away to school, I never had to worry about them because I knew they had each other. David was there to listen to Pilar talk about the trials and tribulations of middle school and high school, and P was there to watch their favorite shows together and make smoothies for them. David always had a love of music. As many of you know, he was a DJ, and he would offer his services to our block parties and for friends and family's events. Even after his official DJ career had ended, he had a talent for making playlists with music from all genres that would be playing at home for whoever was lucky enough to be there. As we grew older, I found myself more and more amazed by his strength and resilience. David was fearless. He loved the open road. He said he never felt better than when he was riding his chair around the city with the sun shining on him. He would go out for hours in all different neighborhoods and capture them on camera in beautiful photographs that we're lucky enough to have today. David and Mom were as close as a mother and son could be. While my mom cared for David, He cared for her in all the ways that he could, like giving her the rundown of current events every night when she'd put him to bed. David is the strongest person I know. He had more than his fair share of tough moments, but even in the most difficult times, he never gave up. David made me a better sister and a better friend and a better person, and I feel so lucky to have had him as my big brother. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danny McGarvey, and for the last decade I've had the privilege of being one of David's best friends. During the years in which our relationship began, throughout high school at Francis Parker, we bonded over a laundry list of conventional mutual interests. David liked Chicago sports, outgoing girls, and boneless chicken, from Buffalo Wild Wings. High school boys, high school things. As far as I could tell, David was a very normal guy. In the years that followed, we kept close. Monthly FaceTimes, pizza when we were home in Chicago, and Cubs games whenever we could get them. We did the same stuff, but every time we saw each other, sometimes months apart, something about David would be different. Over time, it became abundantly clear that I had him pegged wrong. Contrary to my initial thinking, David was not a conventional guy at all. David loved the Real Housewives, to paint his nails, and to pierce his ears. As he changed the way he appeared to the world, he started to change our relationship too. What we talked about, the things that mattered most to us as friends, and just about everything else. He started to share vulnerable truths and ask challenging questions. He talked about his family, his struggles with his disability, and his mental health. For everything he shared, he demanded to be there for me in return. He wanted to know how having Tourette made me feel, and if I ever felt lonely living in a new city. He didn't care what I was doing, he just wanted to know if I was enjoying it or not. Despite the social headwinds he faced life living in a chair, he had uncovered a profound truth known to very few in their 20s. He knew exactly who he was. He worked hard to be his true self every single day. At first, I couldn't understand this, and I asked him once about his newly painted nails. Do you not care if people think it's weird? His response remains one of my favorite lines ever. Danny, he said, if anyone doesn't like it, I'll run them over with my chair. While we mourn, I take solace in the knowledge that when David passed, he was the very best version of David Tellez that he had ever been. If he were here today, he would cry freely and express himself honestly. He worked hard to be the person he became, and in his pursuit of self-acceptance, he succeeded. While no longer with us physically, David lives on as an inspiration, demanding that we be our true selves and honest with how we feel. David was not afraid to cry freely or confront the world head on. David had the courage to say things like, I'm sorry, and I love you. He was wise beyond his years, and he was an exceptional friend. I'm extremely grateful for the lessons I learned from him. David, we love you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raven, and for those who might not know me, I was the family's babysitter, the nanny, David's personal assistant, his right-hand man, his partner in crime. If you know, you know. But reflecting on the past 10 years that I've known David and his family, and thinking about the relationship we shared, I noticed something, that there's a theme that keeps popping up. And strangely enough, David gave me a lot of my first, and especially when it comes to my love of Chicago. I'm not originally from here, and early on when I was getting to know David, it had come up that I didn't know what Portillo's was. I am embarrassed to say I never even had an Italian beef, and David was shook. He was absolutely shook. So of course we went, and that was my very first taste of a Chicago classic. And if you know David, you know how much he loves Chicago sports. And believe it or not, the first Cubs game I ever went to, that was David. And a couple of years later, we decided to brave opening day together. Also a first for me, and in true Chicago fashion, it was gray, it was 30 degrees, it was miserable. And we both made it to, I think, the fourth or the fifth inning before we decided to bail. The first time I ever went to a WNBA game and saw the Chicago sky, that was also David. But it wasn't just the sports. One of my favorite things about David was his curiosity and his love for exploring the city. The first time I ever walked the 606 in Wicker Park, that was David. First time I ever went to the botanical gardens, though outside of the city, that was still David. The first time I ever stepped foot into a skydiving facility, believe it or not, yeah, that was also David. I can't even fully remember the context, but it was him. Looking back over these past 10 years, I realized that people probably thought I was the one bringing David around, like he was tagging along on my adventures. But honestly, it was the other way around. It was David's world, and I was just lucky enough to come along for the ride. So I'm so grateful for every minute of it. So David, my parting words to you, I promise to stay curious and to keep exploring this beautiful city. I promise to cheer on our Chicago sports teams, no matter how much the Cubs test my patience, or the Blackhawks try my spirit. And most importantly, I promise to keep watching TLC's My 600-Pound Life. I don't know, you really love that show, and you got us into it, so I'll keep watching it for you. And with that, David, I love you. Thank you for being my friend. And I know neither of us were religious, but I know I'll see you again. So I'll see you later. Thank you.
Remember me. To the living, I am gone. To the sorrowful, I will never return. To the angry, I was cheated. But to the happy, I am at peace. And to the faithful, I have never left. I cannot speak, but I can listen. I cannot be seen, but I can be heard. So as you stand upon a shore, gazing at a beautiful sea, as you look upon a flower and admire its simplicity, remember me. Remember me in your heart, your thoughts, and your memories. The times we loved, the times we cried, the times we fought, the times we laughed. For if you always think of me, I will never have gone.
Hi, my name is Paris Rosenthal. David and I first became friends in high school. Over the past 2 years, our friendship really blossomed. What I loved most about spending time with David was that our conversations were never surface level. They always went beyond. And that's how our connection became so strong. We talked about family, friendships, mental health, sports, documentaries, and our love of summer. Not everyone is thoughtful enough to have reflective and honest conversations, but David was. David was observant and immensely in tune with his surroundings. He was emotional in the best way. He was funny, gentle, and kind. He had such a contagious smile. When I was with David, I felt like I could be myself completely, and I think he felt the same. With David's passing, I'm reminded of the cycle of life. It feels natural to think about birth and death together, since they are on opposite ends of the cycle. This concept has also been on my mind because David's birthday is coming up in just a few weeks. I am blessed to say that I got to celebrate David's last birthday with him. David, Roseanne, Mark, and I went to Harry Carey's to celebrate his birthday. That restaurant is so David. We ate steak, enjoyed each other's presence, and celebrated David. As for my birthday, it was in March. Little did I know that was the last birthday David would be around for. I want to share the message that he sent me on my birthday. Quote, "Happy birthday, Paris. I wanted to say, for years, I felt like something great was missing from my life. It turned out to be our friendship. Let's hang out again soon." End quote. I think this sums up our special connection perfectly. Even though I could go on and on about David and how much he means to me, I want to end my remarks with a quick story. A couple of weeks ago, on April 13th, I was with David. We were drinking coffee and chatting about life as we often did. There was nowhere else I wanted to be in that moment other than with David. Sometimes when I looked at David, I wondered if he was in constant physical pain, and I always wished there was something I could do to make him feel better. I wasn't willing to accept that his body was essentially stuck in one position. I'm a personal trainer, so thinking about movement is second nature. Mid-conversation, I asked David if it was okay if I moved his joints and his limbs around a little bit. He said yes, so I started gently picking up his arm and moving his elbow. I moved his arm up and down. I bent and straightened his knee. I gave him a gentle stretch for his neck. It seemed like David was feeling sensations he hadn't felt in a really, really long time. He outwardly expressed his gratitude in that moment. We videotaped it so he could replicate what I did with his caregivers. As we were saying goodbye that day, David asked me for a hug. By the way, he had never once asked me for a hug prior to that day. We just usually said goodbye. Little did I know that hug was the last time I ever saw David. I will cherish that hug forever. David, I promise you I will keep your legacy alive for as long as I live, and I promise you I'm going to be thinking about you more than you'll ever know. I never said this to you, David, but I love you, and I miss you already.
My name is Bridget Walsh. I'm David's former teacher and friend. These days, it often feels as though the phrase "I was raised Catholic" has become a spiritual identity unto itself, a shorthand for a certain way of thinking about life, faith, and mystery. Like many, I find myself reflecting on spirituality most deeply at times like this. When we gather to celebrate life, we are not merely recounting memories. We are listening for the messages that life leaves behind, the lessons that we are meant to carry on. During this time in the hospital, Pope Francis recently reflected, "You are waiting too much. Christmas, Friday, next year, when you have money, when love arrives, when everything is perfect. Listen, perfection does not exist. A human being cannot attain it because we are simply not made to be fulfilled here. Here we are given an opportunity to learn. So make the most of this trial of life and do it now." David understood something profound about that trial of life. I often picture him on his walks through the city, going through neighborhoods he loved, navigating a world that did not always move at his pace. I wonder what passed through his mind, what he observed, what he questioned, what he believed about his own place in it all. David did not often speak directly about his death. Still, I have found myself wondering how he contemplated it, how he prepared for this transition, and how he made peace with the inevitability that we all face. Throughout his life, David relied on others in many ways, but that reliance was never weakness. Rather, it was a profound expression of love and trust. A mutual exchange of care that bound him deeply to those around him. Sometimes it was difficult for David to ask what he needed. Other times, and those who knew him best can certainly attest, he had absolutely no hesitation in making his needs, his opinions, and desires known. David could be as dramatic and expressive as any Bravo celebrity, complete with an unforgettable world-class eye roll that many of us can probably picture right now. In the last year of David's life, he often spoke to me about his deep gratitude for the circle of close, trusted friends who supported him and surrounded him. He spent time focusing on the relationships that mattered most, seeking healing where he could, and holding tightly to the love and connections that sustained him. David achieved something so many of us long for, but few of us truly attain. He concluded his life with love, with gratitude, and with dignity. Even as his physical strength waned, I could see the unmistakable signs of a profound peace settling within him. In his final months, as David's body grew weaker, I found myself more than once trying to invite him into deeper conversations about his feelings, his hopes, his fears. Perhaps it was my own need to be helpful or my instinct to return to a familiar teacher role, but David gently resisted. He was teaching me one last lesson. Not every thought, not every feeling demands to be spoken aloud. Some truths are meant to remain private, sacred. Some truths are just for ourselves. Perhaps because David had depended on others in so many ways in his life, he chose to preserve his thoughts about this final passage for himself. It was a journey he needed to take on his own terms. Today, as we honor David's life, we do not simply remember the moments we shared. We also honor the wisdom he leaves behind. That love, family, and friendship can be stubborn, humorous, loyal, and fierce. That accepting help from others is not a failure. It is a profound act of trust and strength. And there is great dignity in keeping certain parts of ourselves private and protected. When Roseanne called me on Tuesday morning to let me know that David had passed, I shared the news with my husband and my young daughter. Without hestation, my 5-year-old responded joyfully, "Oh, Mommy, he's running in heaven." And in that pure, luminous way that only children seem to be able to express, she gave voice to the very truth that my heart most needed to believe. That David is free from discomfort, free from limitation. David is at peace. Because of everything he faced, everything he endured, and everything he triumphed over, David earned his peace. It was not simply bestowed upon him. He built it moment by moment through the relationships he cultivated. Those memories are his gift to us and how he cared for us. We are also blessed to have had the opportunity to witness his example. I am profoundly grateful to have loved him as a friend. As we say goodbye, I would like to offer a prayer that speaks to the peace that David now knows fully, and to the peace I will strive to carry in my own heart in his honor. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born into eternal life. David has undoubtedly earned his peace in eternity. We are the lucky ones, those who had the privilege to know him, love him, and to learn from him. David is now at last running free and at peace forever. And I know he wished for each of us, as he wished for himself, a life filled with love, with resilience, and ultimately with peace. We love you, David.
That concludes our service. We want to thank you again for joining us in celebrating the life of David. The family invites you to join them at La Villa Restaurant located at 3638 North Pulaski right after this. Thank you.